Hello and welcome back to the Hellraiser blog. It's about 5 a.m. On the morning of the Joshua Andy Ruiz Junior rematch. My baby's refusing to sleep, and it's been a couple of developments that I think are very relevant. So I thought I'd do a blog on them. Obviously, as always, if you enjoy the blog, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it around. So two things that have come up that have arisen of late is one, the ring that they're using, I've heard, is a 26-foot ring. 26-foot ring, that's bigger than the biggest ring you're allowed to have in the UK. It's a massive ring. Added to that, the fact that Joshua's come in light, and Anthony Joshua's come in light, and Andy Ruiz Junior has come in heavier, almost 14 pounds heavier than he did in his first fight. Here, making his debut in the Hellraiser blog, little Maxim Helliet. Good morning. Good morning. And I think, if you saw my previous blog, I think it's well worth a watch. You can hit the search button for my blog on that, and I think actually a lot of the things that I said are even more pertinent now. The fact that the ring is big and that Andy Ruiz has come in heavy and Joshua has come in light. I actually thought, I'd seen the pictures of Andy Ruiz, and I actually thought he's going to come in light, because maybe he realised that his main asset against Joshua was speed and movement, and obviously by coming, now the cat's come as well. Good morning, Luca. I think that Ruiz was going to come in light because he possibly saw that as his main asset to use against Joshua, who frankly had become muscle-bound, plodding, for me too slow. I think that's something that I saw in him quite a while ago, that he's sort of becoming quite Frank Bruno-esque in his build and his movement and in fact his tactic, which has worked well for Frank Bruno through his career to a degree, but not really, I think, going to cut it against the top guys, the guys that have got fast hands, fast feet, that can shift their angle, move around, and move their head. I really like Andy Ruiz Junior's movement, his head movement. He's got that sort of, it seems to be inbred in a lot of Latin guys, they sort of have it from very early, even in the amateurs they box with this sort of bobbing and weaving and moving their head constantly. And to have that installed so early on in your learning curve, then means that it is second nature. They don't have to think about it, and the way that Andy Ruiz moves his head is brilliant. I love it, and that actually makes me think, because so the tactics that Joshua, I would pretty much say, is certain to employ now, because they've opted for a big ring. He's come in much lighter, and added to that the fact that Ruiz is in fact coming in even heavier. What you're going to see is Joshua try and use movement. The thing is, for me, Joshua, he actually isn't a bad boxer at long range. Actually, no, he's a good boxer, Olympic Games gold medalist. Some people would say he was slightly fortunate to get the gold medal, but it wasn't scandalous that he got it. Some judges would have given Joshua a loss, I think, on the way, but some wouldn't. Obviously the ones that mattered gave him as a winner. So what I think is going to be the tactic for him is Joshua's going to try and box round the outskirts of the ring, probably picking his shots and trying to break the rhythm of Ruiz and keep it at a slow pace, and use sideways movement with his feet especially, and also head movement, to make sure that they're sort of engaging in almost like a fencing fashion at long range for as long as possible. And I think Joshua, actually, they're not bad tactics on the surface, but my big worry is, can Joshua keep Ruiz off for 3 minutes of 12 rounds? Because to win the fight, theoretically, at least he only needs to win 7 rounds and survive the other 5, and I think he can win 7 rounds. My problem with it is, can he survive the full 12 without hitting that moment where Ruiz gets inside. Now, the fact that Ruiz has come in heavy, I think, weighs in Joshua's favour, because if you ask me, I obviously saw the first fight, I've watched it many times now. The thing that Ruiz seemed to have that Joshua had no answer to was the speed and variety of his attacks. Joshua didn't seem to be able to cope. It seemed like he was almost boxing at times in slow motion, like he couldn't adapt to the speed. And Ruiz, like I say, he bobs his head, he changes angles a lot. And once he's inside, I mean, I was a tall, skinny boxer, so I know very well, the problems and how you try and fend off guys that come in close and throw lots of shots. But bearing that in mind, Andy Ruiz Junior is a nightmare. If you're a tall, gangly boxer who wants to keep him at range, Andy Ruiz Junior is the absolute worst type of opponent. I think, for me, it hinges a lot on if Joshua can use the uppercut to good effect, because I think at some point it's almost a given that Ruiz gets inside, he gets in close, and I think Joshua has to be premeditating, he has to be in advance, ready to deal with that moment, and the solution for me is the uppercut, because if Joshua can land a big uppercut inside, it sort of sends a message out to Ruiz, you're not going to be able to sit up close at will for as long as you can. If Ruiz thinks that he can do that, whether he can do it or not, if he believes he can do that, then his tactic is going to be to try and stick to Joshua like glue, and just move laterally, like once he's inside, move side to side, so that obviously he's not a sitting target and can't get hit with that type of a punch, an uppercut or a straight right, an overhand right. I mean, Joshua's hooks are actually quite tight, so he's not a bad fighter inside, but it's just here you've got a guy who's an absolute expert at fighting inside, and I mean, I don't fancy Joshua's chances if Ruiz can get past the jab and stick inside, stay in there, and use that head movement that he's got to avoid the big shots that Joshua will be trying to fend him off with. From Joshua's point of view, like I say, if he can win 7 rounds and survive the other 5, he gets the win. I think he can win 7. I'm not convinced he can survive the other 5. I think the moment that he engages at close range, even if Ruiz is going to, he's going to have to be, surely he's going to be slower, because he's put 14 pounds of weight on, or a stone almost of weight on. But he looked so much quicker in the first fight that I have to say I do worry a lot. I think, well, what happens if he still has that edge in speed? Because Joshua did not have a solution in the first fight. You could see he just was completely out of his depth, and he panicked. There's no doubt about it, he panicked, because Robert McCracken actually very composed in the corner, giving him very clear, concise instructions how to use his strengths, and not fall into the traps that Ruiz was laying for him, and Joshua was not able mentally to overcome that obstacle. He panicked and he sort of gambled by throwing long shots, and the moment that he had an opportunity to pounce Joshua, he wasn't that cunning and calculating about it. He didn't sort of entice him in and opening up with jabs and then look to place. He dives straight in, and that's actually when he got countered. If you watch the fight, Joshua takes a big risk and gets hit and doesn't recover from it, basically, throughout the rest of the fight. Every time he gets hit, he crumbles. Anyway, I'm really excited about it. If I can still be awake by the time the fight's on, because I've been up since sort of 4:30 this morning with my young heir to the Hellraiser throne. He's been making sure that everybody in the house wakes up. Anyway, enjoy the fight, guys, and please, if you enjoy the blog, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.